So we know that the Mishnah tells us that you don't pay for Niske Kalim if Kalim broke in a bar. The owner of the bar, the person responsible for the bar, does not have to pay for them. Zok the Heilige Gemara Masnisin Deloy Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah is not going according to the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, that we say that you don't pay for Nishka Kelim in a bar is not agreed by everybody. Our Mishnah holds like that, but Rabbi Yehuda is a dissenting opinion. Titania Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev al Nishke Kelim Babar. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you have a bar or you're responsible for a bar and Kelim break in the bar, just like if a behemoth gets damaged or gets killed in the bar, the owner has to pay. So too, if Kelim get damaged in the bar, the owner has to pay. My time of the Rabbanan. What is the svara of our Mishnah? Why are you potter? The Omakra, Nafal Shama Shar Oichamar, and we dashin the Shar and Chamar, Shar Veloy Adam, Chamar Veloy Kelim. In other words, Rashi says it didn't need to say Shar or Chamar. All it had to say is V'nafal Shama Hanoifel. Anything that fell into it, the owner will have to pay. The Torah saw fit to list what items are the Bala Bar responsible for. Shar Chamar. So Shar tells us that you're not mechuyev on if a person gets killed in the bar. And Chamar is telling us that you're not chai for Caleb. Now there's a very interesting Yerushalmi. What is the pasuk talking about? Is the pasuk talking about animal who got killed, or is the pasuk talking about an animal that got damaged? The pasuk Pashas is speaking about an animal that got killed, and therefore it's speaking about a bar that's 10 tefachim deep, because we said you're only chayiv for damages if his shore died in the bar, if the bar was 10 tefachim deep. So the Yerushalmi says that Rabbi Yehuda says, or that we say, sure, v'lo adam chamor v'lo kelim, that's talking about a bar that's 10 tefachim deep. But if the bar is only 9 tefachim deep, you would be chayiv for niske kelim bar. It's a very big chiddush, but that's how the Yerushalmi learns. So we learn you never pay for damages done to kelim in a bar. But the Yerushalmi learns that you only don't pay for damages if the bar is 10 tefachim deep, but if the bar is less than 10 tefachim deep, you would pay for damages of kelim. I don't understand how that could be justified minas svara, but it's the way they interpret the limud from the pasuk. For Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda also it says chamor to be ma'id kelim, but you have an oy l'rabbis as a kelim. It's a shor oy chamor. Oy tells us that you are chayiv for kelim as well. So that is the machloikis. That is the machloikis if you're ma'id from chamor or if you have oy to be marbit. The first question we would have to ask is, if Rabbi Yehuda uses oy to be marba kelim, so what do we learn out of chamor? Now chamor is extra, and the Gemara is not going to end up not resolving this question. The Gemara is not going to find the purpose for the word chamor at the end of the sugya, according to Rabbi Yehuda. For Rabbanon, what did the Rabbanon do? It also says oy. Gemara oy mi boy lechalik. We need oy for a very important reason. Because if it didn't say oy, the pasuk says v'nafal shama shor oy chamor. If it didn't say oy, if it was just a shor v'chamor, I would have thought that you're not chayav for damages that your bar causes, and unless a shor and a chamor die in your bar. If only one of them died, I would have known that there's a chiyuv. Oy tells you shor oy chamor, either one will create a chiyuv for the owner of the bar to pay. Now this shaila is a shaila all over Shas. If it doesn't say oy, does that automatically shor v'chamor? Does that automatically mean shor v'chamor both, and you need oy to be machalik? Or maybe shor v'chamor always means one or the other. That's a famous machlokes between Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yoshia. So Tosfos asks, why isn't this relevant to that shaila? How come the Gemara doesn't bring them in? Zok the Gemara of Rabbi Yehuda lachalik. Rabbi Yehuda also agrees that either shor or chamor, only one thing has to happen, not both. He knows that from v'nafal. V'nafal is a lashon yochid. V'nafal, one thing fell in it. V'nafal nafka. For Rabbanon, v'nafal is not a raya. Because v'nafal tuva mashma, you find many times where the Torah is talking about many, yet the Torah uses a lashon yachid. And Rashi gives some examples. V'asa b'tzala v'aliyah. V'asa, it doesn't say v'asu, it says v'asa. It's the lashon of singular, yet it's referring to multiple people. Uvaha ois v'amoifis, uvaha ari v'asadoy v'shmuel. And we have the most famous one is Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. It doesn't say Vayachanu Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. So the Torah often uses a lashon yachid when the Torah is referring to a rabbim. So therefore, the Rabbanan hold you couldn't bring a raya from a nafal that it's only one of the two. Therefore, you need oil chalik. Fact Gemara, why don't you darshan this whole thing as a klalu prat? Aim of a nafal klal, anything that falls into a bar, one would be chayiv for. Shor v'chamor prat. Then the Torah itemizes only a shor v'chamor. That means we have a klalu prat, and normally the rule is ein v'chlal ela mashe b'prat. If there's a klal and a prat, then you follow the prat, which means shor v'chamor in. Only a shor v'chamor would the owner of a bar be responsible for. But midi achrina, if anything else fell into the bar, like a horse, like a bird, anything would be potter. So how do you know? Sai according to the Rabban, Sai according to the Yehuda, how do you know that it's anything other than only a shor and a chamor? Zakt Gemara Amri Balabor Yishale. After the klal and the prat, we have another klal. Balabor Yishale, meaning he has to pay no matter what. Chazav v'kolal. So you have a klal pratu klal. When you have a klal pratu klal, the halach is iyatadon elo ke'ena prat. It includes a lot more than the prat, but whatever it includes, whatever the klal includes, has to be similar, has to have features of the prat. Ma prat mefurish balechayim, just like the prat of shor and the prat of chamor are balechayim. Afkol balechayim. So all balechayim you would be mechuyev for if it got damaged in your bar. We still have to understand why you need two prat. One prat would have been enough, shor or chamor. So that's going to come out in the wash today. Practical Gemara, if you're saying it has to be similar to the shor v'chamor, let's be more discriminating. Ima prat mefurish davar shenevelosa metama b'magu b'masa. A shor and a chamor, if they die and they're nevelos, they didn't get shechted. The chamor, no matter what, the shor if it didn't get shechted, the nevelos metama b'magu b'masa. If you touch that nevelo, you become tamei. The nevelo is an avatum. If you touch it, you become a rishon. Ubamasa, if you lift up the nevela, even if you don't touch it, if you carry the nevela, even though you're not touching it, you're also going to become tamei. So maybe afkol davar shenevelasa metama b'magu b'masa. It will include every other thing, every other balchai, that if it dies, it has the regular tumah of nevela, which include every type of animal, but it excludes one animal, oif tahar. Aval oif loy. But if an oif tahar died in your bar, you would not be mechuyev to pay, because that doesn't have the same features and characteristics of. It doesn't have the same feature and characteristics of the nevela shenevelas v'tamei b'magu b'masa, because you know how a nevela if Torah makes someone tamei in a very unusual and unique fashion. If one eats a nevelas iftar, as it goes through his beis habliyah, his place where he swallows that part of his throat, that's how he becomes tamei. That's when he becomes tamei. A very unusual, unique way to become tamei, and therefore, it would not be included. It's not similar to these prat. What in the world does tumah? Why would that impact? Why you'd be chayiv for damages in the bar? I don't know, but I'll call upon him. This oif is not similar in its tumah features and how it spreads tumah to other nevelis. So I would not know that you're chayiv for this kind of oifis bar. Zok Gemara, I would still know, because we have two pratim, shor and chamor. I don't need both. We only have to say either shor or chamor, and that would have been enough to teach us all balei chayim, and all balei chayim. But you would exclude oifois that are not matama b'magu b'masa, and then the second prat that was redundant was extra. That will be marba oifis as well. For Gemara, if you're telling me one of these two pratim are extra, either the shor or the chamor, you're going to have to demonstrate to us why it's extra. So, which prat should the pasuk have used, and which prat should the pasuk have omitted? Because of shor, if the pasuk only said v'nafal shama shor and didn't say chamor, well then havamina, I wouldn't have known what I need to know, because I would have thought korav legabim mizbeach in only animals that you would be able to be makrib on the mizbeach. A shor you can be makrib on the mizbeach. An aiz, a gedi, a rachel you can be makrib on the mizbeach. But something that you couldn't be makrib on the mizbeach, like a tzvi, like a behemoth hameya, loy. I would have thought that there is no chiyuv to pay for damages if such an animal died in your bar. Because of a chamor, and if the Torah only said chamor and not shor, havamina, I would have thought kadosh b'bechayrin, only animals that they have a kedushas bechor if it's the firstborn animal, the firstborn male animal. She'ain kadosh b'bechayr loy. But if it wasn't kadosh b'bechayr, like susim and gemalim, as Rashi says, I would have thought there's no chiyuv if these animals fall into your bar. So I need shor and I need chamor. So oy bazoi, even if I have shor and chamor, I don't know nevelas oiftar. I don't know oiftar because an oiftar is not mitame b'magu b'masa. It's nevela. So how do I know oiftar? I have another pasuk that includes an oiftar that falls into a bar and gets killed. I have a new pasuk to tell us that the balabar is chayiv, because the pasuk says at the end vameis yeloi, and we learn from there called the bar misa, anything that could die. So any balei chai is going to have a chiyav of bar. So I just want to stop for a minute and focus a little bit on what is bechor peter behema. It's very interesting that there's no such thing as a behema tmeya that has a kedusha, but you see clearly there's a certain kedusha that's on a peter chamar. So what is the reason for the mitzvah to be paida peter chamar? So there's actually a lot of talk about it. The Sefer HaChinuch says that the reason why we have to be paida a peter chamar is because a peter chamar reminds us of Yetzias Mitzrayim. How does a peter chamar remind us of Yetzias Mitzrayim? Because when everybody left Mitzrayim, they had I think they each had 9 donkeys that was fully loaded, maybe 90. They had a whole bunch of donkeys. Each Yid that left Eretz Yisrael, that left Mitzrayim, had 9 donkeys that were fully loaded up with the gold and silver that they received from Mitzrayim. So that's why donkeys remind us of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that's why we're pointed. There are those Rishonim that say that it reminds us of Bechoros, because we know a guy is am hadoim lachamor, and by Makas Bechoros, HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed all the Bechoros. So we replied to a Peter Chamor because we're remembering Makas Bechoros of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So there's 2 reasons why a Chamor would remind us of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Either it reminds us of the Bechoros of the Goyim, which are Kechamorim, or because we were loaded up, we needed many donkeys that were loaded up with gold and silver to leave Mitzrayim. But there's a Yerushalmi that says something fascinating. The Yerushalmi says, why do we give 5 shloim to the kohen? If you don't have a seh, you give, I think, 5 shloim to the kohen instead. It's because of the 5 shloim for which they sold Yosef. I think it says that they sold him for Esrim Sekel, which is about 5 shloim. It's to remember the Bechiras Yosef. But the problem with this Yerushalmi, Frek the Meshech Chochma, Shemosh Yud Gimel, I think, the Meshech Chochma asks, I don't understand. If the reason why you have to be Paida Petach Hamor is because of Bechiras Yosef, well, then why does Shevet Yosef have to give it? He was the victim. He wasn't the perpetrator. And to add insult to injury, why do you give it to the Kohen? Levi was also one of the perpetrators. He also needs the kapara. I'm sorry, he was one of the main guys, right? So how does it explain that? So Zokta Meshech Chochma, a very interesting eye-opener. We look at every difficulty in life as a major problem. So we have a difficulty, we go crazy, we dive into the Eibishter, and then we get the Eibishter to change his mind. Oh, okay, I wanted to put you through this hardship, but since you davened, okay, I'll change my mind, I'll bail you out. Zok the Meshech Chochmah, that's not the way it is at all. Every difficulty that a person goes through is pre-planned by the Rebbeinu Shalom to go through that difficulty, and then when he's nitzel, to be nitzel from that difficulty. But that's all part of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us into the Bria. Just for instance, Mitzrayim. When we were in Mitzrayim, it sounded like a very big Torah, but that's what actually forged us into the nation that we are. So every experience that we have in life, whether we look at it as good or bad, is custom made for us, and it's really good. Sometimes it's hard to see it, but that is the way it is. So therefore, the Yidden selling Yosef and him going down to Mitzrayim, that was all part of the good. It's not a punishment. So we're remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim, we're remembering the whole experience of Mitzrayim. Side going down to Mitzrayim, side coming up from Mitzrayim, because it's all one big parsha. It's all one big parsha of good. And so it's not, we're not, the right Yerushalmi doesn't mean Zok Meshech Chochmah, there's a punishment. It's not a punishment. It's all remembering how the donkey or the 5 shloim played a big role in the building of Klal Yisrael. I also forgot to mention there's another shita who learns that the reason why we do chamorim is because the chamorim, not only did we leave Mitzrayim with many chamorim to carry our wealth, the pasuk says that when they went down to Mitzrayim, they also went with chamorim. So chamor is a very active part in what Klal Yisrael went through. They were always followed or assisted by chamor. Okay, we have to look it up. I think it does. Gezakt the Gemara.
Wenn sie sind gegangen, wenn die Schwutim sind gegangen kaufen, they went to Mitzrayim.
Could be so. Could be referring to that. Okay, Gezakt the Gemara. Now we have a new pasuk of Ames Yaloi to tell us that anything that's a bar misa. Now let's think a second. Can a keli die? No. So if a keli can't die, why did the Rabbanan need the word chamor to be memayit kelim from Vameis Yaloi? I know that you can't be mechui for kelim because keli can't die. Or Rabbi Yehuda, who learned from Oi to be marber kelim, how can you be marber kelim? It says Vameis Yaloi, it has to be a bar misa. So Frekmar bein le Rabbanan de kamamayit lula kelim, ubein le Rabbi Yehuda kamarber lula kelim, kelim b'nei misa ninu. Kelim cannot die. Zok the Gemara Amri Shfirason Zui Misason. You know what it means, the death of a keli? The death of a keli is when it breaks. Breaking a keli is considered dying. Zok Rashi, therefore, Hilach l'Rabbanon also chamar l'mutinu. Yes, from Vamesi Aloi, I would include that the broken keli goes to the balabar, and the balapar pays the difference between the good keli and the bad keli because it's called misa. So therefore, you need the pasuk of chamar hoyel v'lav misa mamashi. You still need the pasuk of chamar to be mamayit a keli. V'shar l'muta adam. Why she'ena min behema? An adam is not even a min behema because of Rachman Achad. If we only had one of the two, hava mina l'muta adam, I would have only used the one prat to exclude an adam from damages if a person dies in the bar. I would have thought that kelim you are mechuy for the chikam amayit balechaim the kavasei the chikam amayit balechaim the kavasei kavamayit. If you only have one prat, you would be mamayit something similar to it balechaim, so humans would be excluded from the damages of a bar. So according to Rabbanan, you have chamor to exclude kelim, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have oy to be marber kelim. Avagav delav b'nei misanu, even though they can't mamish die, avdelav b'nei misanu mamish, but we still consider that you could use the word misa to apply to them kashvirasa. Ushvar lemute adam balacham de kavase. The common parach Rabbi Yehuda chamor lamali. The Gemara is going to ask, now that Rabbi Yehuda uses oy to be marber kelim, so what do we learn from chamor? Okay, let's see what the Gemara says weiter. Frag the Gemara. Ularav do Amar Bar Shachayva Olav Torah Lahevloi V'Loi Lechavatoi, which is a kasha that Shia Shachachevsky asked me a couple of days ago. According to Rav, who says Bar Shachayva Olav Torah is Lahevloi V'Loi Lechavatoi. So then Bein LeRabbanon, Bein LeRabbi Yehuda, it doesn't make a difference if you hold like the Rabbanon that you're Chayiv in this Kekelim, or according to Rabbi Yehuda, like the Rabbanon that you're Potter in this Kekelim, and Rabbi Yehuda holds you're Chayiv in this Kekelim. Kelim b'nei Havlaninu. Rav holds the only chiyuv of damages caused by a bar is the damage that's caused by the hevel. How will hevel impact a keli? So once again, why do I need a pasuk to be b'mai kelim, or how could you be told to chayiv kelim? Kelim will never die with hevel. So in fact, hevel could damage kelim as well. Amri b'chadati. We're talking about new kelim that haven't been cured yet. The mifkehi mehavla. They will pop. They'll explode. They'll get swelled up. They'll get ruined in hevel. So in fact, a keli can get virtually killed. Shiviras zumi sason through hevel.
The hevel and the bar from 10 tefillim is so.
Vice it could, yeah. The vice it could. If it can kill an animal, maybe it could damage a keli. So zok to Gemara. So I want to stop a second because we had this kasha 2 days ago. Why do I need a pasuk of chamor to be my kelim? Kelim, according to Rav, wouldn't be possible to be impacted by a bar because according to the Rav, it's all hevel, right? So we had a teretz to the kasha. The teretz that we had is the Gemara said that even according to Rav, if it was a bar b'shusai, according to Rabbi Kiva, where you had a bar in your rishus and then you were mafker to land around it, so now the rishus rabbim has access to your bar, there you would be chayiv for chavata as well. We said, so maybe that's where I need a pasuk to tell us that you don't have to pay for damages of a keli. And so that kasha is asked by Tosfos. So let's see what Tosfos says. See, the thing that we thought was a teretz now is turned around as a kasha because the Gemara doesn't say that teretz. So zokt Tosfos as follows. Zokt Tosfos afilu l'man de'isla beperek habaniach del Rabbi Yehuda mafkin zakav la'acher nefilas pshias potter v'mkei loy mechayiv Rabbi Yehuda ela bebar b'shusai. You're only mechayiv on the bar b'shusai. Ubebar b'shusai itzrich shaper lemifter kelim b'chavata. The chavata dideyu. If the kelim broke in a bar that was within your rishon, there is a chiv chavata. So maybe that's why we need a pasuk to be b'mayit a bar from damaging kelim. Zok Tosfos no. Mikamokim perch shaper. The Gemara wants to find even in the normal bar that's in Rishus Rabbim where there would be a chiv to pay for kelim. Mikamokim perch shaper the behezek hevel mishtoikra. Lemaisa the pasuk is talking about damages caused by hevel because the Torah is talking about a bar Rishus Rabbim. Mididorish Rav v'nafal achiyipol derech nefila. So if Rav dashes pasuk achiyipol derech nefila, it's only nageya derech nefila if it's hevel, right? If he falls face first, that's where there's a damages of hevel. So therefore, we're looking for a similar case that due to hevel, a keli would get damaged, and in fact, the Gemara identifies that case as a new keli that would get damaged by hevel, and therefore you need a pasuk of chamor to be memayit nizikin of a keli, or according to Rabbi Yehuda, oy will be mar. Zok to Gemara weiter. The pasuk of Ameisi Eloi we're using is marbe oifash. I would not have known that an oif tar, if it dies in a bar, that the owner would be chayiv. We needed Ameisi Eloi to tell us, call the bar misa. Frank Gemara, you don't have Ameisi Eloi to teach us that. We just learned yesterday 2 other things that the Gemara was talking about needing Ameisi Eloi for. Either that the Bailam are metabel benavela that we just learned at the end of the yesterday, which is what we're using by Meisi Eloi of shor, and by Meisi Eloi of bar, the Gemara taught us right over here at the bottom is coming to teach us. It's coming to teach us that a shor psulei mekdoshin that fell into a bar is going to be potter because you cannot have a Meisi Eloi because you cannot have a no from the meat. So zok the Gemara, I by Meisi Eloi is mebayel chederava damarava shor psulei mekdoshin shenafal a bar. Potter shnemar v'meish yaloi b'mish hameish yaloi yotzezeh a sharp shulei mikdoshim sheina meish yaloi because you cannot have enough from the meat. You'll have to just get rid of it because you cannot serve it to a dog. Ella Amar Kra, you're right. V'meish yaloi, we're abandoning. It's not teaching us that kol de bar misa is going to be chayiv on damages. Rather, how do I know that everything alive you're chayiv for damages if it dies in your bar? Specifically, how do I know? Nevelis oif tahar. How do I know that an oif tahar you're liable for its damages. Zakta Gemara, it says kesef yoshiv libalav. Money must be paid to the owner. L'rabbis kol the islay bailim. Anything that has a bailim, is included in the damages of bar. Frag the Gemara, kesef yoshiv libalav. Anything that could be damaged, you're going to have the bailim of the bar have to pay. That's very inclusive. Even if kalim get damaged in a bar, they have bailim, are an adam as well. So in fact, Yoshev is very, very inclusive, but we have two miyutim, shar and chamar, and therefore we're memayit everything else. We're memayit adam, we're memayit kalim, but everything else will be included. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that kalim, you are muchuyah for the nezik in the bar, so they're not midaik from chamor to exclude kalim. Bishlema shar mimayit payada. Bishlema, according to Rabbi Yehuda, why the Torah says shar, it's to teach us that you're not chayv if a person dies in the bar. Ela chamor, my mimayit pay. Exactly what is the purpose of the word chamor in the parsha of bar, according to Rabbi Yehuda? Al-Amarava, in fact, we don't have the reason. We don't have the answer. Chamor the bar Rabbi Yehuda, the word chamor mentioned in the Torah discussing the parsha of bar, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and v'sed aveda l'divrei hakoil, when the Torah talks about returning the aveda, the Torah lists off many different meaning. It says al kol dvar achicha. Let's see if we can find it. It's yeah. So the pasuk is quoted here. A kol dvar pesha al shor al chamor al se al salma al kol aveda. Why does it have to lift off all these things? So the Gemara darshans every single one of those pratim by the sugya of aveda. Why the Torah had to say it? But there's only one word that the Gemara didn't have a purpose for. We don't know what they're for. We don't know why the Torah said those words, chamor by bar according to Rabbi Yehuda, and se of aveda according to everybody. We do not have a reason for it. We don't know the reason. Beautiful. This was the last line, the last halacha that we learned in the Mishnah on Nun Beis. Zok Gemara. My shor cheresh shoyta. What does it mean shor cheresh shoyta? Ilema shor shel cheresh, shor shel shoyta, shor shel katan. So you tell me you're only mechuyev for damages if the owner of the shor was a cheresh shoyta v'katan? Hashor shel pikeach potter. Are you going to suggest that the shor of a pikeach, if it falls into your bar, you don't have to pay? That makes no sense. As Rashi says, hecha patra kra. Where do you find it? The Torah said that just because the shor belongs to a sane person, therefore the owner of the bar is potter. On you're right. What we mean is shor shahu cheresh, shor shahu shoyta, shor shahu kat. You're only mechuyev to pay damages to a shor that falls into your bar and dies if the shor itself was not with its full faculties. Ha shor shahu pikeach potter. So are you saying if you have a healthy shor that falls into your bar, you're not mechuyev to pay for damages to that shor? That doesn't make sense either. The Mishnah is telling us the bigger chiddush, but the smaller chiddush, the Mishnah doesn't even speak out. It's pashut that if a regular healthy shor falls into your bar, you're going to be mechayiv to pay for its death. But if you had a shor that was damaged goods, even before it fell into your bar, maybe the balabar can say, I don't have to pay for damages because it's not really my fault. Digging a bar is not really what killed these animals. Why did it fall into my bar? Because there was a problem with the animal. A regular animal would never have been in any danger due to my bar. It's this animal, because the animal is compromised, the lifter, I don't have to pay. Kamashmalan, the Mishnah is telling you that even if the animal that falls into the bar is somewhat handicapped, nevertheless, there's still a chiyuv for it. We have a problem because it says in the Brisa, Vatanya, if a person who was sane, and Pashas were speaking about a human, If a human who's sane fell into the bar and he dies, the owner of the bar is potter to pay. I'm sorry. My love, shor bardas. Let's say it's speaking about a shor bardas, which means you're wrong what you're saying until now. Up until now, you wanted to say shai a shor bardas that fell into the bar, shai a shor that was a shor cher shor that fell into the bar. You'll be chayiv. But if you read this brayse, it's mashma dafka. If it's a cher shor are you going to be chayiv? But if a shor bardas fell in, you'd be potter. My love, shor bardas. So it's shver on what we just said, on what Rabbi Yirmiyah just said. Amalei, so we answered no. Adam, this Bryce is not even talking about a shor falling in. A shor that fell into a bar, it doesn't make a difference if the shor is a bardas or not. The owner of the bar has to pay. We're talking about a person. If a person who's a bardas fell into a bar, then the person will be potter. So, Frank the Gemara, is that this case? Adam ben dasu the potter, halav ben dasu the chayiv. Are you telling me if a person who doesn't have his full seichel falls into a bar, the owner of the bar has to pay if he dies? The pasuk says otherwise. The pasuk says shor v'lo adam ksiv, and it doesn't say what type of adam. Any adam, whether he's a bardas or not, that falls into the bar, the Torah is saying the balabar is potter from paying. Elamai ben das min ben das. When the Braj says if a bardas falls in your potter, it means the type of species of which there are bendas, humans. So it really means any human that falls into a bar, you're potter for damages if he dies, because it's a shor v'lo. So we've forever everything that you can actually learn that when it comes to a shor, whether the shor was a bendas or not, if it fell into your bar, you're mechuyev to pay. But for the Gemara of Tanya, we learned that that's not true. The Brayse says nafal l'toichai shor bendas potter. You have a mafurish Brayse that tells us that if a shor bendas falls into my bar, I don't have to pay for the if it dies. So how do you explain that? Elo Amar Rava, you're right. Sharvu cheresh, sharvu shoita, sharvu katan, dafke. Dafke, if the animal is not by the seichel and it's defenseless against a bar, there the bala bar has to pay damages. Aval sharvu pikeach potter. My timer. Why? Because the bala bar can say, my bar should not have presented any danger to your shor. The boyle yuni mezel. Your shor should have watched where it was going. Tanya mehachi. Or umahalach balayla, if the damage occurred at night, chayiv, because there your shor is defenseless against the bar that I had. But pikeach umahalach b'yoyim, but if it was a regular daylight situation and the animal was fully capable of avoiding this bar, potter, there the balabar would not be chayiv. A huge chiddush that you're not chayiv for an animal dying in your bar if the animal could have avoided it himself. Yeah. I could tell you, why was your shor such an ox? Why was your shor such a behemoth? He should have looked where he was going. Sagt the Gemara weiter. Echad shor ve'echad kol behema l'nefila sabar. This is a geschmacka sugya that we're learning. It's the last sugya before we finish the parak, because it now opens up. It opens up the sugya to kol atarikula. Echad shor ve'echad kol behema l'nefila sabar. As we just learned, that you're not only mechuyev if a shor falls into your bar. We've learned that any behema, right, from Kesav, Yosy v'Labala, we learned it includes everything, any type of balei chai, you're mechuyev to pay for it if it dies in your bar. That's right. But you know where else it includes all other behemoths, even though it only says shor v'chamor? So it only says shor v'chamor by bar, yet we say it applies to any balchai. You know where else it's neged to? Ula frashas Har Sinai. It says that by Har Sinai they weren't allowed to go up on the mountain. It says in behema im ish lo yichya, right? Lo shiga bo yad kisakol yisakol or yara yara in behema im ish lo yichya, right? So it says behema mish. The Gemara tells us that not only can the behema not go onto Har Sinai, and the behema would get killed if it was put onto Har Sinai, it would also be a noif, it would also be a chaya. So there it's also very inclusive. So the Mefarshim ask, "My hava hava." Why would the Mishnah tell us about halachas? Why would the Mishnah tell us about halachas that happened then? It's not nagay anymore, right? Sometimes the Gemara asks, if it's not nagay nowadays, it's only nagay when Mashiach comes. The Gemara asks, Hilchas or Mashiach? Is the Mishnah telling us halacha is not relevant? Here it's even worse. Here it's my hava. It's never going to happen again. There's one Kabbalah. So I remember. I'm sorry. Okay, could be. So I remember when I was in yeshiva and my Rebbe wanted to say Atifa Lom Shashir, he would clear up Atifa Lom Shashayla that had no nafkamina whatsoever. So we would ask him, Rebbe, what's a nafkamina if you learn it like this kvetch or like that kvetch? So he would say, what do you mean? It's a nafkamina like kedusha isha. What if someone's mekadosh and isha almanas that my tzad of the kvetch is the halacha? So it'll be halacha. So up until yesterday, I always laughed at my rebbeim who are too lomdish for their own good, and they made these dakistik chalukim that had zero impact on anything, and they said, "Oh, nafkamina kedusha isha." But it wasn't their invention. I found out yesterday, because the Ran, not over here off in North, but the Ran discusses this in a different exactly. This is brought elsewhere. The Ran says, you know what the nafkamina is, whether or not whether or not by Har Sinai, other animals were usher or not, other animals would get killed if they were on Har Sinai or not. Nafkamina is if someone says Hareini Nazir Almanas that a turkey that was on Har Sinai would get killed. So it's the Galach Lamaisa for Hareini Nazir. So this is the Ran saying it. Okay, weiter. Ulatashlume Kefel. The halacha is the pasuk says by Kefel. It says I'll call Varpesha, Al Shar, Al Chamor, Al Salma, which is also the pasuk of Aveda. I'll call Aveda Shayoy Mekuzeh. Ad ha Elohim Yavoy Devar Shnein Asher Yershin Elohim Yeshalom Shnayim L'Reyu. So it's not only on a Shar, Chamor, and Al Sen, Al Salma. It's on everything. So there also the pratim are lav dafke. Ula Shabbos Aveda, again, it's the same pasuk we talked about a second ago. Lifrika, the halacha is you have to help unload your friend's animal if it's overloaded, even though the pasuk's only referring to a chamor. L'chasima, it says leisachsem shar b'dishai. It's not only if the shar is doing work for you, any animal that's doing work for you. L'klayim, the halacha is, Rashi, there's two things we're talking about. A is, behem techalai sharbiyah klayim, you're not allowed to mate two animals, you're not allowed to breed two different animals. And B is a shar and a chamor could not plow together. It's like shar v'chamor yachtov. It's not only a shar v'chamor, it's any two animals. Ula Shabbos, you're mechuyim on Shvisas Behemtecha, not only the behemoths, listen to the Torah, but every type of bachai. V'chein chaya v'oif, and not only are all behemoths included, but a chay and oif are also included in all the halachas kayoyt behen. Frank Limar imkain lama nema shar or chamor. So why in all these cases the Torah always uses shar and chamor as an example, particularly in our case of bar el shadibar akosav b'hoiva, because that's what most people worked with. Most of these shilas were always only relevant to a shar and a chamor, but avada they apply to everything. Zok the heilige gemara l'nefinas habar. How do I know that all animals are included in the filas habar? Because of what we learned on Amar Aleph. Kesev Yoshev L'Balav Tziv called the Islay Bailim Kidamar, and like we just said on Amar Aleph. How about Lafrashas Har Sinai? Because it says in Behema im Ish Lo Yichya, and we know that the Chaya B'Chalal Behema Havya. We know in general a Chaya is included in the heading of Behema. How do we know it? Because when the Torah started telling us in Devarim the behemoths that you're allowed to eat, the Torah introduces the parsha with the words Zois HaBehema Asher Techelu. And you know what the first items in the list are? It starts listing of chayas. So you see chayas are in the heading of behema. Okay? And im l'rabbis es ha'oifes. And im is l'rabbis es ha'oifes. Okay? Then it says l'tashlume kefel. How do we know that all animals are mechuy for kefel? It says in the pasuk, al kol dvar pesha is a klal. And we learn kol debar pshia, everything is included in anything that you could be pashaya on. You could be mechuyev for kefel, and Rashi adds vafilu davar she'ein by ruachayim. And even something that's not alive, you're mechuyev to pay kefel. La shavas aveda, because it says in the pasuk lachol aveda sachicha, to be marba anything. Lefrika, How do we know that you're mechuyev to help unload an animal even though it's not a chamor? Yalav chamor mishabes. And we're going to see soon by Shabbos it lists off chamor, and it's going to be extra by Shabbos to teach us that just like by Shabbos you're mechuyev in the malacha of your behema, even if it wasn't a chamor, so too when it says chamor by prika, it means any animal. L'chasima, it says like sachsim shor b'dishoy, yalav shor mishabes. It also says shor by Shabbos, which is extra, just like there it means any animal, so too by chasima. L'klayim, zaktimar iklayim de charisha. If we're talking about klayim, that a shor and a chamor cannot do malacha together, that I could yalav shor mishabes. That I could learn from Shabbos. And the klayim de harva, and if we're talking about when it says behem techaloy sharvia klayim, it doesn't mention the word shor. Right, by plowing together, it says you shouldn't plow with chamor v'shor yachta. But by climbing, it just says behemtecha lo sharbiya climb. Yalef behemtecha mishabes. You learn behemtecha by Shabbos, which means not only behemoths, it means chayis as well. So too in the parsha of climb darvo. The Gabi Shabbos nolan. We've learning so many things from Shabbos. How do you know Shabbos gufa? The Tanya Rabbi Yosy Yomer, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel. B'dibros harishonos nemar, in the first Aseres Dibros in Yisroi, it says Adcha b'matcha ubehemtecha. It says ubiyom shvi Shabbos l'Shem lekecha l'sazak malacha ata uvincha uvitecha adcha b'matcha ubehemtecha. So but Luchas Harishonos it says, oops, where am I have to? It says adcha b'matcha ubehemtecha. Ubedibros achronis and in Devarim and V'nischanan nemar v'shorcha to ubiyom shvi Shabbos l'Shem lekecha l'sazak malacha ata uvincha uvitecha ba'adcha b'masecha. And then it gets into details. V'shorcha, v'chamorcha, v'chol b'emtech. It says in much greater detail. In fact, the Gemara about l'shor v'chamor v'chlal kol b'hemahayu. It already says kol b'emtecha. Why did the Torah speak about shor v'chamor? V'lo miyotzu loy malach ma shor v'chamor ha'omer kan chayev oiv kayotze behen. Just like the shor and chamor listed in Veschanan doesn't really mean to limit it to shor v'chamor. It includes every other type of animal as well. Avkol chayev oiv kayotze behen. So too in all the other places where we just said you learned from Shabbos, there also it includes chayev oiv. Break the Gemara, Ema behema the dibros harishonos klal. Let's say it says behemtecha, that it says in Yisroi is a klal to include everything, and then sharcha v'chamorcha the dibros achronis is prat, and then there's a prat in Veschanon where it lists off all the different animals sharcha v'chamorcha, and then klal prat ein bechlal elamashe b'prat shor v'chamor in midi achrina loy. Maybe from the klal prat you should learn that dafka the shor v'chamor are you mechuyev for its avoida, for its malach on Shabbos, but not every other animal? So you might ask, how could you make a klal prat from Yisroi to Devarim? It's klal prat amuruchakim zamizeh. Zaktaisves shomar v'zachar b'dibur echad. Both these parashas were set together, so they're very curved. They're more curved than curved because they're simultaneous. Dr. Gemara Amri, there's another klal at the end of the pratim in Veschanan v'chol behemtecha the dibros ha'achronos chazer v'kolal klal uprat uklal. Yatadon elakena prat, ma prat, which is shor v'chamor mefurish balechayim, av kol balechayim. Freit the Gemara, the same thing we asked earlier by bar. Lema ma prat mefurish dover shenevelosei mitama b'magu b'matzah, av kol dover shenevelosei mitama b'magu b'matzah avol oifois loy. Maybe there would be no chiyah for shvisas oifois tar on Shabbos. Amri imkei nichta v'chmon nachad prat. Then we only need to say shor or chamor. Why both? So the Gemara goes for the same shakal b'tayah we had to show that both shor and chamor are needed. Hai nichtay v'chmana. Ikaz v'chmana shor have been a karv l'gabe mizbeach in shein karv l'gabe mizbeach loy. Because of v'chmana chamor. Because of v'chmana chamor have been a kaddish b'bechayr in shein kaddish b'bechayr loy. In other words, you'd be able to do malacha with a sus or a goma. Because of v'chmana shor. So once again, how do I know oifos as well? El b'chol behemtecha ribuyahu. When it says v'chol behemtecha at the end, that's a riboy, and that's going to be barber even oivoids. Are you telling me anytime it says kol, it's a riboy? Maybe it just acts as the final klal. Zok Gemara, I'll show you that kol doesn't always mean a riboy. Kol, the kardashin leibechlalu prat. It uses the word kol, and we still don't say it's a riboy. We still say it subscribes to the same rules of klalu prat. The Tanya we learned. What are you allowed to buy with mois ma'aser sheni? The pasuk tells us, you could buy whatever you want. That's the klal. But then the Torah gets specific. But bakar uvetzain uveyain uvesheichar. Prat. These are 4 pratim. And then the pasuk continues with a klal uvechol asher tzachon avshama because of a klal. So here it says uvechol, and the Gemara, the Brisa darshans it as the final klal of a klal prat klal. It doesn't say it's a riboy to be marba everything. Klal uprat klal. You have to done elakena prat. What can you buy with mois mashasheni? Only things that are similar to the bakar betzain beyainu v'sheichar. Ma prat mefurish primi pri. It's one thing that grows out of another thing. As Rashi says, primi pri vlad moiled, like a shor gives birth to another shor, or yayin me'anovin v'sheichar mitmorim. It's things that grow out of other things. What would we exclude? Lamuti kmeyin, which are truffles, upitrias are mushrooms, umayim and water umelach. The ene primi pri. They don't grow out of. They're not procreated from the previous generation. They just grow spontaneously. And you also need to gedula karka, because a bakar and soin and yain and shecher are all gedula karka. Lamute dogim shenikchim bekasav meiser. Toys v'zas in certain sugyas we do not consider animals to be gedula karka. So that's so Toys says it all depends on what you're talking about. As Toys says over here, the Indian dover yotzim mamish minoritz. If you talk about the mamish, something that grows out of the ground, animals are not considered gedula karka. But here we're just speaking generally. Af kol prima pri gedula karka. Dr. Mar Amri bakoil is klala, and by Ma'aser Sheni it says bakoil shetav nafsra, but by Shabbos it says kol, and therefore ribuya, and therefore it's marva everything, even oiftar. Ibay sema kol nami klalahu. Even kol would be a klal, and it's not a ribuy. Miu high kol the hacha ribuyu. The kol that's by Shabbos in Parashas Veschanon, that is a ribuy. Why? The pasuk could have just said v'hemtecha. Why did I say v'chol v'hemtecha? Let's look at the pasuk. V'yemishvi Shabbos Hashem lakecha l'satzakol malacha atu v'nchol v'techa v'avtecha v'amasecha v'shorcha v'chamorcha u'v'hemtecha. Why does it take in the v'chol here? It's mamish not required. Just like the Torah said it, but the Dibros Rishonos, because of kol v'hemtecha shemami na ribuya. Therefore, it includes even a oiftar. Now that you say kol ribuyu, now from the ribuy I learn everything. I learn any type of behema, any type of balchai. You're not allowed to make it work on Shabbos. So I bezoi behemdecha the dibros harishonos, b'shor v'chamor the dibros ha'achronis lemeli. Now I have all these extra pratim that I'm not learning a klal prat or klal adam. Why do I have them for? So Gemara to teach us all the other things in the Torah. Ami shor like mur shor l'chasima. That l'sachsim shor b'disha, just like by Shabbos it means everything else. So too by chasima, every animal it's also to be chosim b'disha. Chamor like mur chamor leprika. Not only is you have to help unload a chamor, you have to help unload any type of animal, because by Shabbos it means every type of animal. Behemdecha like mur behemdecha. The hamtachal climb to tell you when it says le'shabir climb, it's not only a shar and a chamar, it's every type of animal. Again, you're learning from Shabbos. Frank the Gemara, if that's the case, afilu adam litzar. If you're telling me the hamtachal teaches you that anything that's included in behema, like Abba Shabbos, is included in the isser of loy sachshosh b'shar b'chamor yachtov. On Shabbos, is a person allowed to do malacha? No. So Ibazoi, how could we know the halacha is you're allowed to help pull the wagon together with your chamor, together with your shor. But why are you any different? Just like on Shabbos, which is the whole makar of this halacha. You're not allowed to do malacha together with your shor, so how could you plow together or pull a wagon together with your shor? A person is allowed to schlep a wagon with his animal. The people from Papunoi, they know the answer. The whole milsa of this thing. Who came from Papunoi? Umanu, Rab Acha Bar Yaakov Amar Kra. It says by Shabbos it says L'man Yonuach Avducha V'Amasecha Kamoicha. Where do we say a person is involved? That's Lagabi Yonuach. That's Lagabi resting on Shabbos. Lanacha Hikashtiv. I made a hekich from a human to all other animals. Lagabi Malacha, Lagabi resting on Shabbos. But there's no comparison between a human and all these other things when it comes to other things such as climb. And therefore, by climb, a human with an animal is not climb, but on Shabbos, a human is not allowed to do avodah with a behemoth. By the way, Papunoi, do you know that there's a riding in Canada that's called Papunoi? You know who is the MP for that riding? Someone who's definitely not someone who understands anything. He's definitely not Yodi Tamid Homo. Prime Minister Trudeau, his riding is Papineau. It's Papineau. So it's clearly he's not in the same league as Rabbi Bar Yaakov, who knew the Svara to be Mechalak between Hilchas Shabbos and Hilchas. Okay, Gewalt. Everyone should have a wonderful, wonderful day.